Mate, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We're absolutely stoked to get you on board.
Pleasure.
Yeah, especially that regional audience, which we have anyway. They'll be, absolutely pumped to hear from you as well. And yeah, Katie and I actually attended Nail It, Scale It in, I think it was 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. Back in the live days.
Pretty good. It was exactly. That's pretty cool what you've been doing now, though.
Mate, it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. But I was only saying this to one of the team yesterday. I think it's been 6 months since I've been on a stage. No, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Yes, 7 months. Shit. It's been 7 months since I've been on a stage. And I'm actually getting to the point like I wouldn't mind getting on stage at some point. Like I love that aspect of being on stage. It's just that adventure. It's that thrill. It's being with that when being able to talk to that many people at once. Yeah. And whether you're talking to a room of 80 people or 8,000, it's just something really, it's just a very high level of connection. And I do miss that. The digital is great, don't get me wrong, but it's a different energy. It's a very different energy.
I was just about to say that, being on stage like that with 1,000 or 2,000 people in the room, it's just that energy that sort of creates would be the biggest thing. So.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. No, you must have been, I think you were crook as a dog leading up to it or something.
Mate, I've run events being sick, back hurt. So that's possible.
Yeah, right. There you go. Now, all right, mate, we know you're short on time, so
let's rock and roll.
So we'll just go through. We're recording it now. We'll go through it, and we'll send all this to you as well. So if you guys want to utilise it, you can.
Brilliant.
But yeah, we'll go through a bit of an intro, and then we'll rip into it. So
sounds good.
Beautiful. All right, welcome everyone to the first episode of the Huntsman Hype series. Firstly, I'd like to introduce ourselves. I'm Rhyley Hunter, the Director of Huntsman Recruiting, and we've got the lovely young Caitlin Fuller over here as well. She's our Senior Recruiter. So the Huntsman Hype series developed off the success from our Strange Times webinar series where we saw the likes of the Honourable Julie Bishop, Lisa Messenger, and other local business owners that have I guess, dare I say it, pivoted throughout COVID and have really sort of pumped things up for themselves. So, look, we don't like skimming the surface, and our aim is to get the core of our guests. So we're encouraging people to be honest and transparent so you can walk away feeling inspired and pumped, ready to make a big change in your life. So we'll be covering topics around business, mindfulness, health and fitness, recruitment, culture, and loads more. So here at Huntsman, we have a unique and quirky marketing style, which gets some awesome results for our clients. So if you're in need of a good recruiter, reach out to Katie and myself. We have branches in both Wagga Wagga, Albury, Wodonga, and have recently expanded to other areas in New South Wales, Queensland, and the ACT. So watch out, Australia. We're coming for you. We're all over social media, so follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or our websites at huntsmanrecruiting.com.au. So I'll throw it over to Caitlin.
Thanks, Mr. Hunter. So we're stoked to have such a big name for our first episode of the Huntsman Hype. So to welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Kerwin Rae, we need to
I should have brought my mum with me. She would have clapped for everybody.
So I'll introduce Kerwin. Kerwin is Australia's leading business strategist and high-performance specialist, helping over 100,000 businesses in 154 different industries throughout 11 countries worldwide. With his revolutionary, no bullshit approach to business growth and personal transformation. Kerwin has reached millions of people across the globe with his extensive social media following of well over 1 million people and compelling content which covers business, mindset, psychology, high performance, health, parenting, and relationships. Kerwin has also shared the stage with some legendary names such as Sir Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, and Mark Boris, just to name a few. Rhyley and myself were lucky enough to attend Kerwin's Nail It and Scale It event back in 2019 and absolutely loved it. And I'm sure, Kerwin, you remember me from that event.
Both of you.
Yeah, she stood up once. She's just over 5 foot, so yeah, you're lucky to see her anyway.
I think when you stood up, I think it was after you stood up, I said, "Can you please stand up to ask a question?" You said, "I think I already am."
I'm sure you did take a picture for something like that anyway. So
anything's possible.
Yeah, exactly. So
we just wanted to say thanks again for hopping on today, but I might kick us off.
It's a pleasure, guys.
And firstly, ask our first question, and that's, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today?
Wow, we could probably fill a whole podcast. I can talk, you guys know this, but I'll stick to the short version. I'll stick to the highlights reel. I was born in Canberra. and my parents separated when I was about 6 months old. So I was brought up by a single mum. For a good portion of that, she was on a pension before, becoming quite entrepreneurial in her own right and opening an art gallery. I failed every subject from year 1 all the way through to year 12. I think I added it up. This is going back a few years ago, but I tried to work out how many different jobs that I had before I started the business that I'm now in now. And I think it's about 48 different jobs that I've actually had. Yeah, I know. It's a lot. But when you consider in high school, like just in high school, for example, I was managing a gym before school. I was working in Sizzler after school. I was working in, 2 jobs as a labourer on the weekends. I've always been someone who's been quite active. I've always been someone who, at a very early age, I had this, I guess you could say it started out with an obsession just to make money. And that was really evident by the fact that, I grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of money. And so I thought it was something that was missing. And so I started my first car wash when I think I was about 12 or 13. That quickly pivoted into a lawn mowing business after we scratched the neighbor's car, which quickly pivoted into a chocolate making business after we fucking ran over a driveway and sent a rock through a 15 square foot fucking plate glass window. And so we started packaging. This is in sunny Townsville. And so then we started packaging up chocolates, selling them door to door quite successfully. And then we basically sold out of everything we did there. And then we started actually selling we started selling from the lawn mowing to selling horse shit door to door. And that was actually my first real coup. Was we started, we'd basically fill garbage bags full of horse shit and would put it in wheelbarrows and would wheel it around the neighborhoods, going to neighbors and people's houses and knocking on their doors and offering to sell them bags of horse shit. And I guess the question would be, like, how much would you pay a 13-year-old kid to get off your fucking front lawn who had a wheelbarrow full of horse shit? And it was quite successful. And we got to the point where we cleaned out every stable in the local area. And then we moved into chocolates and started selling chocolates. And, when you give 2 13-year-olds 20 kilos of chocolates, how do you think that's going to fucking go? So that didn't end up going so well. But say that again.
Did you make the chocolates yourself?
Yeah, we'd boil it down, we'd mix it up. We used to have
mint. The Cadbury down or what?
No, we used to do it properly. We'd get the proper melting chocolate and we'd melt it down, massive pots of it. And we'd have what do you call them? The templates, and would fill them with, almonds and peanuts and mint chips and coconut. And, we did it properly, and we took it door to door and we sold hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of chocolates, but we just ate the profits because, we just found that, for every 10 bags that we sold, we probably would have eaten 2 on the round. So, that's when itself was its own journey. And so through the myriad of different jobs and bits and pieces, I ended up, discovering I had a real passion for growing businesses. I discovered I was pretty good at it. I think that's based on the fact that I'm ADHD, and if things don't move quickly, I get quite bored. I also, through this period of working lots of different jobs, discovered that I just wasn't very employable. And what I mean by that, I was a very hard worker, very diligent worker, but I just wasn't very good at being told what to do. I wasn't, although I was respectful for authority, I just hated being told what to do. I hated not being the one calling the shots. And so eventually I decided to do it for myself and started a few businesses, bought and sold a few things. And then realized that I had a real knack for helping my mates build their businesses. And then before I know it, I started consulting. And now I get the opportunity to teach people all over the country and all over the world.
Oh, yeah, right. And how was your time even with the likes of Tony Robbins, like Katie touched on before?
Yeah, Tony, I probably started my journey with Tony Robbins like everyone else did. I read one of his books and then went to one of his seminars, and then I was very lucky where I went back and to crew for Tony, and I was lucky enough to get a position on his personal security team, which was a 4-man team. And because I had a background, like one of the iterations that I had, I spent 4.5 years as a private security contractor. And of those 4.5 years, I was, one of the go-to guys for, whether it be most international artists. So I got the opportunity to look after, U2, Boom Crash Opera, Jimmy Barnes a couple of times, Madonna, Bon Jovi, E17, In Excess. So I got the opportunity to be a CPO or a bodyguard for a number of different people in the entertainment space. And so when I went back to crew and they had this position available, it was a very easy match for me to go in and support. And it wasn't a very tough gig, but I got the opportunity to see Tony not just on stage, but also backstage as well. And I was absolutely phenomenally blown away by his work ethic. I've never seen, even to this day, I try and model it. And not so that I'm modeling Tony per se, but I try to maintain a very high level, a very high work ethic. And he really kind of set the baseline of what a real work ethic is.
What do they say? He's like 3 or 4 day events. He can do 2 to 3 marathons on stage or something. Is that really right?
Yeah, something like that. The energy expenditure, the calorie consumption, the calories burnt, it's just phenomenal. But what you don't see is he'll come off stage, and from the moment he comes off stage, he's in meetings, on telephone calls. He'll be on a massage table, on conference calls. He'll be getting adjusted by his chiropractor whilst in a meeting with his creative team. And, then he'll be, 50, whether it's a 3-minute break or a 30-minute break, and then all the way up to him walking back on stage. It's 1 minute Tony, 30 seconds Tony, 15 Tony, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and while they're counting down, he's on meetings, he's having communications, and when he's on the warm-up tramp, there was obviously a few times where he was just in his own space, but as I said, the level of productivity was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And then he'd go out on stage and he'd fucking hammer it for 5 hours straight without taking a pee break.
Yeah. Well, to touch on that as well, like one of the things we wanted to cover was, like, obviously going to your event too, like the energy that you bring to things as well, and obviously looking through all your social media and your YouTube videos and whatnot. So how do you manage your energy? Like, what do you do to regulate that?
That's a really good question, and this is the thing I think a lot of people, whether it be entrepreneurs, high performing athletes, employees, really miss and understand that. I would say 80+% of your performance really comes down to your ability to be able to expend usable energy and have access to, a battery of energy. And so for me, learning how to build and store energy to be able to be deployed in situations and circumstances where it's required is probably the most important thing of performance, because if you don't have fuel in your tank, you can't start the engine. And if you've only got half a tank, you're only going to finish half of the race. You've got to be able to have, surplus amounts of energy to do anything. And so for me, the way that I maintain my energy is I meditate every day for, anywhere between an hour to a couple of hours, depending on what time I wake up. I intermittent fast, so I'm only eating 1 or 2 meals a day. So I have a very long window. Most of my windows are about 16 hours of not eating every day, which that in itself makes me a lot more nutritionally efficient. I'm using the nutrients in my body a lot more effectively. I'm not creating an excess environment. In most situations, I'm creating caloric deficit at least a few times a week, so that my body is really efficient when it comes to not just metabolizing energy, but just utilizing the nutrients that are flowing through my body and not having to use energy to expel good food or expel bad food, or using energy, because if you're eating shit food as an example, you might use more energy to digest the food than the energy that food actually gives you. And that's often evident when you eat a shit hamburger. You're really starving, you eat the shit hamburger, and all of a sudden you feel really lethargic. There's a number of variables in that, but one of the variables is your body's working very hard and it's expending more energy to digest it than it's actually producing in the digestion process. And so for me, when I eat, I'm eating in most cases, whole foods, easily digestible foods that provide me, access to a lot of energy. And I'm also hydrate. If I've got something big on, I'll preload hydration in the morning, at least 1 to 2 liters before that's probably within the first 10 minutes of waking up. If it's a normal day, if I'm not expending a normal amount of energy, massive amount of energy, I'll still consume at least a liter of hydration before I get out of bed. But when I combine meditation with the intermittent fasting with, quality hydration and, quality nutritional content, in my system, that's a big part of it. But if there's one key ingredient that really enables me to do things that in most cases leave people, wondering how, it's because I do what I love, and when you do what you love, you tend to have this access to storehouses and reserves of battery power that, other people who don't do what they love don't have. Because when you're fueled purely by energy, that's one thing. But when you're fueled by energy and passion and purpose, which is combined into an inspiring mix, then, you can burn excess to the amount of calories that you've consumed. You can go and dehydrate without, having to hydrate and still be able to perform. And that's what I've discovered, because my passion and my inspiration in most cases run so high, I can actually push past the limits of what would be considered, physically normal, but it has historically come at a deficit. And so I've had to learn how to balance those two things together and go, right, how do I push myself beyond the limits, but actually provide myself all of the, mental, emotional, spiritual sustenance to be able to maintain that and have something there so that when I stop, that my body can start recovering straight away.
And with the, in regards to the meditation as well, like you obviously worked your way up to an hour or two a day and whatnot as well. How did you start with that? Like, because a lot of people struggle with saying, I can't even do that for 5 to 10 minutes. I can't switch my mind.
Look, most people say,
meditating for, Kerwin?
I've been meditating for about 25 years.
Yeah, wow.
Hang on, 25 years? Yeah, maybe more. 25. Look, I started meditating in my teens. I was very lucky. My mum introduced me to a lot of concepts. I was introduced to Buddhism at a very early age. I was introduced to prayer at a very early age. I went through 4 religions by the time I was 14. I'd been introduced to meditation by the time we were in Buddhism. And my mum had taken me to a range of different personal development trainings. But I didn't do my first actual meditation, what I'd call a full-blown meditation training, until I was about 25. I went and did Vipassana. And Vipassana is the equivalent of full contact meditation. It's, it's a 10-day silent retreat. They segregate the men and the women. You're sleeping from, you're waking up at 4:30 every morning and you're meditating till 9:30 every night. You're having breaks, of course. There's no talking. There's no eye contact. It's just, meditation and discourse. And, I did that about half a dozen times, and that was fucking hard. I've got to tell you, it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But when I came away from that, the Vipassana method is hour in the morning, hour in the evening. And I found that really difficult because I'm just, I'm quite hyperactive. But it wasn't until I got introduced to Vedic meditation, which is also known as transcendental meditation, which is more of a home practice versus a monastic practice. And that's 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. And as soon as I got onto that routine, I picked it up super easy. I adapted really fast. But then I just found myself over the years, I've been meditating Vedic now for 8 years. I just now find myself being able to drop in for longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. Sometimes I can, and again, I sometimes wake up at 1:30 in the morning ready to go, or between 1:30 and 4:30 in the morning ready to go. And if I do that, if I try to go back to sleep, you end up waking up feeling like shit. So for me, I just sit up in bed, put a pillow behind my back and I'll meditate. And I think not last week, but the week before, there was a 2-week period where I was waking up at 2:30 every morning, 2:22, 2:22, 2:22. And so I was meditating for like 3.5 hours every day for 2 weeks. And, people say, oh, it must be really difficult. I was like, well, actually, when it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's actually not that fucking hard. What else are you going to do? There's nothing else really going on around you. So it's a great time in the morning to have that discipline. But now, I find myself, I can meditate at the back of the room at a Nissi. I can meditate in an airport and on an airplane. In fact, I really enjoy meditating in really noisy. I meditated at a U2 concert a couple of years ago just for shits and giggles. And that to me is, it's one of the...
Or what?
Pardon?
So is that any reflection of their music, or what's the story there?
No, not at all. I just had a mad headache, and so I thought, I'll sit down and meditate. I had seats. We had box seats. I was like, well, I might as well utilize the opportunity. And for me, and this is the funny thing, it's like personal development. Personal development is easy when it's sunshine. It's 28 degrees and there's not a cloud in the sky. Being the weatherman is easy. Navigating a boat is easy, but when it's cyclonic conditions, navigating a boat in cyclonic conditions is completely different. Meditating on a quiet morning is very easy, but meditating in a rock concert is something very different. And I'm just someone that likes to do things that are difficult, and that's a very strong part of my innate drive, is I just like to do things that are difficult.
Yeah. And have you taken any of those aspects like out of meditation? Because obviously the thing is to it as well, be able to put that into your daily life as well. Like obviously you can't sit in meditation all day, every day. So what do you pull out of that as well to be able to help you get through when you're in high stressful situations?
Well, this is the thing. When you're meditating, your body literally recalibrates itself. You're using you're completely relaxing many aspects of your central nervous system. You're allowing both hemispheres of the brain to be able to communicate. And so what it enables you to do is be able to deal with stress, deal with emotion, deal with pressure far more easily than you would on your own. It's proven to be neural regenerative. So it protects your brain and it regrows your brain. It improves your memory, improves your sleep. So as a result, you're more recovered and you're waking up feeling a lot fresher. And so ultimately you have more energy. It stabilizes your hormones. But transcendental meditation is probably the most researched meditation on the planet. And it is literally just reams and reams and reams of academia papers just verifying there are so many benefits to meditation that literally should be taught in schools.
It is an absolute game changer. Like I've studied the last 2 or 3 years, and I think since we attended your event as well, you sort of put me onto Joe Dispenza. I'm sure you spoke about him.
Yes.
And they just
he's phenomenal.
Yeah, unbelievable. Some of those meditations are, you could be, again, feeling absolutely stretched to the eyeballs. Next minute, I'll come out of there an hour and a half later, completely different person floating around, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it is funny. I have 2 young boys, and I know what you meant just before when you said sometimes you wake up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I am just awake. But I always think to myself, if I don't go back to sleep, then I'm going to be, tired for the rest of the day. And I wake up feeling like shit the majority of the time after that.
Yeah. Well, here's something to remember. Like a good solid, 20, 30 minutes of meditation is the equivalent of between 1 to 3 hours of REM sleep. So, if you're waking up early and you get a good meditation in, you're actually getting a better sleep than what you probably would. And in some cases, you even actually fall back to sleep. And that's why some people go, well, I can't meditate, I fall asleep. And they go, well, if you're falling asleep, that's just your body getting into a meditative state and releasing exhaustion, which just means you should be meditating more. But, on the notion of kids, Caitlin, my son will come in the morning. I have my son 50% of the time, and I'm a hands-on dad, so I cook him breakfast, I make him lunch, I wash his dishes. But he'll come in the morning, most times between 5 and 5:30, and I'm normally meditating until sunrise, which is, up until recently was 6 o'clock, and now it's sitting around 5:45. And so oftentimes he will sit in the bed with me for between 20 minutes to an hour while I meditate. And the beautiful thing is he's learnt now just to sit there, and he'll just lie there, sit there, lay there, watch. Sometimes he'll pretend to do what I'm doing. And as a result, now he's fully conscious of what meditation is. He even will wake up in the morning, and and he'll say, have you meditated yet, Daddy? Or if I get grumpy throughout the day, he'll be like, Dad, did you meditate this morning? He's 6.5, right? But he knows if I don't meditate, then I'm not as good a dad as what I can be. And so if I do get grumpy, he knows if I don't meditate, then I can be a little bit more edgy, a little bit more grumpy. And so he encourages me to meditate. And there was something happened a couple of weeks ago where I woke up in the morning and I hadn't meditated, and I was like, oh. And I'm like everyone else. I wake up some mornings going, oh, fuck, I can't be asked. I just can't be asked. And he goes, hey, Dad, you haven't meditated? I was like, no, I'm not going to meditate. He goes, Dad, I don't want you to be grumpy today, so you have to meditate. And I was like, okay. Awesome. And I'm not a grumpy guy. Like I'm not a grumpy guy at all, but it's just funny that he would say that, to say, well, I don't want you being grumpy today, Dad. You got to do it. Do it now. And it's just like, the kid's 6.5, and I could be, he's telling me to do something that's taking away time that could be playing with him. So it's just interesting in the family dynamic.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's funny that you touched on that with your son, because I even think with school, I've got a 5-year-old that's just started kinder this year, and I feel like the curriculum of education these days should be shifting towards more mindset and mindfulness and wellness, and
absolutely
practicing meditation in the
absolutely. Oh, let's not get into the educational system. The educational system is outdated.
It's funny that age.
It's defunct.
My little girl Maisie, she's only 2, and I was meditating every day throughout COVID as well. That's when I really tried to establish a bit of a practice. And she just came up to me one day and she'd sit alongside me, even now as well. She doesn't really know what you're doing. But I'll be like, come on, let's breathe together. And she's like, it's just, it's so cute to see. And it's good to see.
Beautiful.
See your son.
It's beautiful. And kids speak energy before they speak English, or whatever language that they learn. And she may not know or be able to give a label to what you're doing, but she can feel what you're doing. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
And I guess now we're on the subject of children. What's your take on parenting? What are people doing right or wrong?
Look, I'm not here to tell anyone what they do right or what they do wrong. I make all the mistakes that everyone makes. The only mistake that I don't make is I don't hit my child. That's what's called assault. That's abuse. Just in the same way that we wouldn't hit a team member or spank a team member for making a mistake. To me, being a parent, like one of the most important aspects of being a parent is understanding what the dynamic is. Because most people look at parenting and go, well, I'm a parent and my job is to tell them what to do. And it's like, no, that's not how fuck it works. All right. And if that's how you think it works, then you're going to end up with a bossy little bully child that's probably going to display in some cases behaviors that aren't necessarily what you would consider to be acceptable. Because what are they observing? They're observing you telling them what to do and using in some cases force, intimidation, pressure, guilt, shame to get kids to do things. The parenting dynamic to me is not one of master servant. It's one of leader. It's one of leader servant, and being a servant leader and understanding that your job as a parent is to set the example of the behaviors you want your kids to see. of the behaviors you want your kids to adopt. And then your job is to be able to serve them in the situations that matter, to be able to help them understand why their behaviors are perhaps out of alignment or why their behaviors are in alignment. And so for me, I use a lot of social corrections and social acknowledgements. And by social, I mean I talk. So if my son does something wrong, I don't, I from time to time, I'm like everyone else, I raise my voice. Sometimes I'll yell. The only difference is if I yell, I'll get down on one knee within 30 seconds of yelling and apologize. It's the most hilarious thing you've ever seen. If I ever yell in my house, it's like, rah! And then I'll get down on one knee. Like, okay, first of all, I'm sorry for yelling, but I needed to get your attention. And then I'll go into, it's hilarious. I do it in public, wherever it happens, right?
Is that
this is the thing.
Or is it to get his attention?
Look, I don't yell unconsciously, but I will raise my voice. Yeah. To the point where if I need to interrupt a pattern, if he's off on a pattern and I'm saying something over and over and over, I'll just elevate my tone until all of a sudden you get my attention. Go, why are you yelling? And I'm saying, I'm not yelling. I'm just raising my voice. And I had to keep elevating my tone until you listen, and then we'll discuss what's going on. But like everyone, every now and then it comes out wrong. Sometimes they push that one button, and I'm human. But as I said, I always apologize. But for me, I'm very big on dialogue. So whenever we're looking at behaviors, if he does something that I like, I'm always giving him excessive levels of praise. Mate, that's amazing, phenomenal, well done. Oh my God. He's like, really, really, really? And he creates this excessive level of, of praise for the behaviors that I want to see. But when he does things that are perhaps out of alignment with the values of the family, then we'll sit down and we go, okay, so what was that all about? What was going on there? And like most kids, when they're emotionally charged, they're like adults. They don't want to talk about it. And so you go, okay, well, we don't have to talk about it now, but we are going to talk about it. Let's wait till we calm down. So when we calm down, then we talk about it. What was that about? Why did you do that? Okay. Do you think that was the right thing? What do you think you could have done differently? And what are you going to do next time? And is there anything you need to say to make amends? We're very big in our household on personal responsibility. My son sees me take responsibility for every fucking thing I do, including swearing. Because as you guys know, I do swear like a trooper. And people go, oh, he just does that for show. No, I don't fucking do that for show. That's a lot of who I am. And that's evident by the fact that my son will actually pull me up for swearing at least 5 times a day. He'll be like, Dad, naughty word. And every time I swear, he'll go like, Dad. And I'll be like, I'm so sorry, mate. He'll be like, that's okay, Dad. And then I'll carry on. And then, an hour later, I'll be like, fuck. And he'll be like, Dad. I'll be like, sorry, son. He goes, that's okay. And so I allow him to hold me accountable to things that he's able to hold me accountable to. And as a result, it gives us that dynamic. It's a fluid dynamic where he's able to hold me accountable to behaviors and I'm able to, hold him accountable to behaviors as well. So there's huge focus on accountability.
Yeah. I'm glad you kept him accountable that day, the nail at Scarlett, when he was drawing dick pics on your whiteboards at the front there.
Right, that was the one you were at. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Oh, that was hilarious.
He's a very artistic young man.
It was a rocket, wasn't it? Yeah,
it's definitely a rocket.
No, it wasn't a rocket. It was actually Dad and Noah, and I can actually I've got his drawings down pat now. It's like, it looks very much like this. It's a happy face.
At least it's happy. You know what I mean?
Very, very happy. He's standing upright. He should be happy.
And to touch on what you said, that you have your son 50% of the time. So obviously you're divorced or separated. But how did you go with that? Like, I guess initially, and that relationship with your partner as well.
Look, I think when you end any relationship, it's always difficult because you're unraveling the dynamic that was, and whether it's a partnership, a friendship, a business relationship, or a marriage. Look, it was difficult, but the beautiful thing that we both did, and that's why I'm very grateful for my ex-wife Kristen, is we both did it as consciously as what we could. And by what I mean by that is we both did a fucking incredible job, with the resources that we had. And some days there were some challenging days, but overall, the thing that got me through is I just kept on thinking about, okay, I didn't make it about me. I didn't make it about her. I made it about what's right and what's best for Noah. And so as a result, we had a huge focus on stability, a huge focus on open and, transparent communication, a huge focus on maintaining family dynamics, in a non-family or in a non-traditional family environment. Doing family dinners, doing family hugs. I even went back the first 2 years. I even went back for family holidays in Canada. Whilst we weren't together, and that was surprising to everybody. You know, to me, it was just, well, no, I want to maintain relationships with everyone. You know, Noah's got grandparents and cousins and everything else, and aunties and uncles. Just grandparents and related cousins and aunts and everything else. And yeah, I didn't want to be not in the middle of that. I wanted to be, if anything, a bridge to say, yeah, it's okay. You know, we can all still be together, even if we're just not in a traditional dynamic.
Yeah. And I think that it's one of those things when people separate, that a lot of the time people think that it's something that has to be nasty, or there's a huge dispute between these two people, but really it can be quite amicable.
Yeah, look, I think people do what they see. And if people have been shown how to break up badly, that's what they do. Yeah. You know, and I don't think I was shown how to break up well. I just think I'd been through enough relationships to know how to do it better. And I had enough of a vision to be able to go, I know where this could go and will go if it's not managed the right way. And I just, you know, every now and then you've just got to, you know, grit your teeth, smile hard and swallow. And, you know, sometimes life feeds you a shit sandwich and sometimes it feeds you a sunshine sandwich. But when you've got a reason to do things above just the flavor of what's in your mouth at that moment, you focus on the bigger picture. You don't focus on the taste. You focus on, you know, this meal might taste like shit, but I'm going to look great when it comes to summer, you know. You know, this workout might really hurt right now, but fuck, I'm going to feel good tomorrow, you know, when I wake up and, you know, I'm looking a little bit better, or I'm a little bit leaner. And the same in the relationship. Like I think hurt people, you know, people in pain inflict pain. And I think oftentimes when a relationship ends, and you see this in all sorts of relationships ending, people sometimes go, well, the relationship, it's just got to a point where it's no longer working. It has to end. But maybe that doesn't sound good enough. And so I need to come up with all these other reasons to justify why this relationship is going to end. And I need to think of everything I don't like about this person to be able to tell every person when they say, I thought you guys were great. Why'd you break up? Well, let me roll out the list of all the reasons. And then that becomes, you know, the focus becomes, well, let me try and justify my reason for leaving. And that in itself becomes quite toxic. Whereas when my ex-wife and I separated, we did it very consciously. We did it very deliberately, you know, and, you know, we just did it with a much bigger vision in mind.
I was only talking to someone about that the other day, actually, that you know, a lot of people that are going through separations, if it's business or personal or whatnot, both people or both parties are completely unconscious. And that's where it creates this drama and whatnot as well. So, no, it's a really good way to put it, mate. So, and just you touched on before, you were talking about like trimming down or whatnot for summer, like in one of your analogies, but what about, like, I'm right into it. I saw you a couple of years ago. I don't know if you still do it, but calisthenics. Like, I was introduced to that about 3 years ago. I absolutely love it. Never looked back. Haven't lifted a weight since, basically. Anyway, but are you still doing that?
This year I injured my shoulder. Well, actually, I thought I injured my shoulder in January, so I hadn't actually trained much since January. But yeah, I've been doing Cali pretty much well up until January. I've still done a few Cali workouts. But I'm still training. I'm just now doing more functional training. And I've now developed a very deep passion, and I'd say burgeoning on a love affair with yoga. I'm entering a new phase of my life. It's really quite interesting. I still,
you know, as well.
Honestly,
I love it.
It's amazing. And it's because it's just so different. And I'm going to assume, you know, you're probably, you know, 35, maybe 40 plus now.
Gee,
how old are you? How old are you? It must be a grainy screen. It must be.
We can Photoshop it a bit later. We can touch it up.
Well, I'm 46. Okay, I'll focus on me. I'm 46. And I've got a fucking foot in my mouth.
Elsewhere, right?
But I've just noticed, like, don't get me wrong, I love to train, but I used to, I guess you could say, I used to think training was punishing myself, you know, and I've got that fortunate but unfortunate switch in my brain now that I developed over a long period of time, where I can deal with a disproportionate amount of pain for a disproportionate period of time. Like, for me, you know, pain is just something that I'm very accustomed to. I have a great relationship with it. We're on a first name basis. And, you know, I can basically ride myself through a whole range of, painful scenarios. And the problem with that when you reach the age of, let's call it 46, is your body's in a very different stage of life. And my body still adapts. And as I've proven to myself, every single time I want to put on muscle, I just need to train. I need to just train more and lift and eat more, put more weight on the body. Even with the calisthenics, I beefed up with calisthenics. I got to like 96, 97 kilos. I got massive just doing calisthenics, because I wanted to prove to myself that I could still do that at this stage of my life. And I've done it. I've done it. I've got no issue. All I've got to do is eat and train, and I can put on muscle. I'm very blessed that way. But now I'm kind of in this stage of life where I know I can punish myself. That's the easy part. But now can I actually show myself a level of love? Can I show myself a level of care to get the same outcome? How do I nurture my body to feel good versus punish my body to feel good? How do I become more loving for my body to produce the body that I love versus punishing the body that I hate to produce a body that I would love, if that makes sense.
And so mindset around that, like say with the Cali work as well, into making it more of a loving type relationship with training instead of trying to bust yourself.
Yeah, look, and that's why I will always do calisthenics. I will always come back to Cali. Even the functional training I'm doing right now, it's cross fascial integration, neurogenesis driven. It's like I'm doing some really intelligent training right now. And don't get me wrong, Cali is very good for an integrated training base. But what I'm now doing is I'm now moving into another realm of training, which is focusing on intelligent training. And it's not to say that calisthenics is not intelligent. If it's done well, it's very intelligent. But there's ways that you can actually use and mobilize the body, which is, cross-lateral, above the line and below the line, that when you do it, it literally creates an environment where it forces your muscular system to start becoming more aligned and connected with your brain, and it's referred to as neurogenesis, where the more different types of exercises that you put on your body from a cross integration perspective at any one time, the more intelligence the muscles actually need to be able to move and coordinate with other muscle groups. And so it's like developing a neural network within the body that supports the communication system. Think of it as signal towers. When you're doing Cali, you're putting up signal towers around the body so that the brain can talk to different parts of the muscle. But when you're doing, I guess you'd call the cross-fascial integrated functional training, you're putting up these signal towers everywhere. You're putting out lots and lots of these little signal towers so that it creates a much higher efficiency of communication and a much greater speed of communication. And as a result, it reduces the incidence and the chances of injury dramatically. And that's why I'm doing it, because I've always... with bodybuilding and powerlifting, I got to the point where my body just started breaking down. And with Cali, it got to the point where my body started breaking down. But what was interesting, my body wasn't breaking down. It was just developing the wrong way. And I thought I had a shoulder injury, as I said. But what was happening is I didn't have a shoulder injury. I was just so, front side dominant that my pec on my right side was so strong that it was pulling and rolling my shoulder forward and then starting to pull the bicep tendon into the socket. And it's pressing the shoulder joint was pressing on the bicep tendon. And so I was getting this pain in my shoulder going, my shoulder's injured. My shoulder wasn't injured. My body had just realigned itself based on, my body not developing in a functional way. And so now I'm doing obviously the yoga to open myself up. I've stripped back an enormous amount of muscle mass to be able to get my body to the level of mobility that I'm looking for. And once I achieve a level of mobility where I'm now 100% injury free, I have full mobility in all my joints, then I will probably start to introduce more Cali style training. I'm even introducing, boxing training, and I want to, get back into introducing Muay Thai and MMA training as well. But again, you've got to have the body to be able to facilitate the movements of whatever you're doing. And rather than just doing things for the sake of being able to do them, and I'll just grit through the pain of my shoulder, or I'll grit through my sore wrist or my sore knee. So, okay, well, how do we get the body happy? How do we love the body, nurture the body, get the body so happy and healthy that it'll then say, yeah, you want to go and do some Muay Thai? Go and do some Muay Thai. I'll support you. You want to do some Cali? Do some Cali. I'll support you. Yeah. Whereas if your body's not happy, you go, fuck, you can do the Cali, but I'm only going to support you the best I can. It's probably going to hurt. Yeah. And I say, well, I can deal with pain, and that's not my issue. My issue is not being able to deal with pain. My issue is learning how to, nurture myself.
Mm-hmm. And touching on the yoga, anyway, I've only done my second holotropic breathwork session there. It was on Saturday, and it's been
how'd you go
both times. Have you done much of that at all?
Mate, I'm a big fan of breath work. Massive, massive fan, because I've done a lot of work with psychedelics and plant medicine. And I've been introduced to breath work now for a couple of years, but I didn't really break through with breath until I think it was January this year. I was on a fast. I'd done 6 weeks of juice fasting. And then I finished off with a 5-day water fast. And then during that 5-day water fast, my system was so clean. My system was so empty. I started doing breath work, and I was having full blown DMT, psychedelic, out of body experiences. Like, I was just like, wow. And that, for me, like, I've always really admired, the psychedelic properties of plants for their visionary capabilities, but I've never really been a fully, it's like anything. It's like, I don't mind the benefits, but I wish I could have that psychedelic experience without taking a drug. Do you know what I mean? I wish I could get the benefits without, doing something that is considered in our society currently to be illegal. And so for me, the breath work has just enabled me to access other dimensions and other states, but also other biological states outside of, spiritual and mental and physical states that in some cases are only achieved, with the use of medicine.
Yeah, it is crazy. I said to Katie, I died for 20 minutes on Saturday night. I was like, I don't know what happened. But it was just, every experience I've had with that has been unbelievable.
Have you done ice bathing yet?
I was, until they changed. So I'd do the sauna and ice bath, probably 3 or 4 times a week at the gym here in Wagga, but they've had it closed down since COVID. So,
what if you can find someone who can integrate the for shits and giggles, integrate the breath work with the ice bathing? Because I've integrated, like, doing the breath work prior to the ice bath and then getting in the ice bath and experiencing that. But then I've also integrated doing the breath work before getting in the ice bath and then doing breath work in the ice bath. Now, again, it's not something that is recommended for everybody, but I like to do things that are difficult, and it's transdimensional. It was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. So, I'd love to get into the ayahuasca stuff as well. Like, it sounds like you have too, but we'll probably push it on to so we absolutely love them. That's how we originally got onto you, was through your K-Day vlogs. And we just absolutely loved them anyway. And it gave us a really good window into the soul of your company and your culture and how you operate. And we just love that transparency you have with staff. Like, you all keep each other accountable. You're 100% take full ownership individually. But so how have you created that? And what was the journey like with that as well? Because even now it must be tough. I see some of your staff, they're crying, you're upset, vice versa. Like, how do you manage that?
Well, look, it's life. It's life dynamics. The only difference is I give people a window into what's going on in my world. And we have an environment and a culture where it's acceptable for people to express emotion openly without the fear of shame or guilt or, losing their job. And so, we've worked very hard over the last 20 years to develop a very open, transparent, performance-based culture that enables people to, be able to show up as they are. But 90% of the battle is finding the right people who show up as they are, which is as is the person that you want to be when they show up as they are. But it's like parenting. Building a culture is like building a family. Building a business, and a team is like building a family. It is about understanding the dynamics that create what is a family vibe, what is a culture in an office, and it's based on parenting. It's leadership. Monkey see, monkey do. But if you hire the wrong monkeys will do what they don't see. No matter what you show them, they still won't do it. So it's how do you find the right people? Mate, I think she's the one pulling the strings by the sounds of this. But it's the big part of the battle is being able to find the right people who have values that are aligned. But once you've found people who have values that are aligned, it's then being able to hold the standard of what's considered to be acceptable for the organization itself. And like, as a parent, when you're a parent, you've got one child. When you're in business, I think we've got 76 people on our team now. And, that's 76 kids, 76 mouths, 76 families, 76, other interpersonal relationship dynamics, mortgages, health conditions. And, when you've got a team member dealing with a business owner, they see themselves as, well, I'm important, and they are. Every single team member is important. But when you've got 76 team members, every single one of them is important, and it's just like, how do you navigate and balance that out so that everybody gets the love? And it's a challenge. And it's one that we lean into and pursue with vigor. And I wouldn't say we're ever going to nail it. I don't think you ever nail relationships completely. But if anyone has or does, let me know. But we continue to just do the best that we can with the tools and the resources that we've got. And we're very lucky that we've got good tools, we've got good resources, we do a pretty good job. And we're always open to doing it better.
Do you set people up, like when you're recruiting though, do you set them up for that type of culture?
Oh, 100%. My goal is not to build a high performer. My goal is to find a high performer that's looking for a home and then get the fuck out of their way. High performance for most people, and high performance can be built at any stage of life, but off the rack, high performance from a recruitment perspective happens in childhood and high school. And it comes into, what were their hobbies, what were their disciplines, what were their routines, what were their focuses and their commitments. And if someone comes into my organization and they played rugby for 15 years, I know that they're going to be a high performer and they're going to, have a high probability of being a team player. I just need to explore that just to make sure that my assumptions are correct. And so when I'm hiring, I'm looking for people that have a background in a level of discipline, whether it be, martial arts, sports, competitive sports, military, a hobby. I've had one girl that was a great performer. She was a ballerina, prima ballerina. She started as a ballerina when she was like 4 or 5 and, went all the way through to, I think, when she was like 14 or 15. And, she was a strange, quirky girl, but at the same time, she was an incredibly hard worker who had a ridiculous work ethic, who could deal with immense amounts of stress and pressure, and physical and mental pain. And why? Because she'd been doing that for fucking 10 years as a ballerina, And so for me, if I get someone fresh off the boat and I put them into our environment and they haven't been conditioned, they will fucking pop. Whereas if I can find people that, have backgrounds in high performance in some area, then all I have to do is make sure that they've got the skills that I'm looking for, and to the degree that's required for the role, and then bring them in and then upskill them as much as possible and get the fuck out of their way. And that's probably one of the key things in recruitment for us is how do you find the right person with the right skills, hire them, onboard them, love them, welcome them, and then get the fuck out of their way and just be a resource. My goal when I hire people is not to be their leader, not to be their boss, but to be their resource and their leader. What resources do you need from me in order to do your job exceptionally well? Tell me, I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Who did you learn off yourself? Have you got a role model sort of in mind as well that you've?
Too many. Like I'm very much an observer. I've been a people watcher since I opened my eyes, and I'm constantly observing social dynamics, social interactions, both good, bad, and otherwise. I'm a massive ambivert. I probably lean on the stronger side of intro than extro. I'm extro in some capacities, like, being on stage. That's easy for me. I find it easier to talk to 8,000 people than I do 8 people any day of the week. But at the same time, I'm massively introverted, and introverted people are often very reflective and introspective. We observe and we watch and we see, and, I see things that most people wouldn't. And so as a result, just through observing and I said 48 different jobs, I've worked for some incredible people. I've had the great opportunity to pick up a lot of different stuff along the way. And that stuff has enabled me. And I'm someone that loves to learn, but I'm not someone who loves to learn to be able to hold on to knowledge. I'm someone that loves to learn to apply straight away. I don't, if I read a book, I will fucking destroy it. Like if I find a book that I really like, I'll read it 10 times. I'll underline the things I love. I'll dog ear it. I'll fucking photocopy it. I'll create cheat sheets on it, and I'll keep doing that until the thing falls apart, so that I can extract and squeeze every little bit of fucking juiciness out of it, so that I don't waste that time. Because some people go, "Oh, I've read I'm very blessed. I've read probably close to 1,000 or more different books, and I've destroyed hundreds of books in the process." But I've met some people who go, they're going, they're maybe not as successful as they want to be. And you sit down and you have a conversation with them and you go, well, have you thought about that? Oh yeah, I read about that in a book. And then you find out they've read, 150 books on success and personal development, but they've implemented fucking nothing. Yeah. And so I'd much rather people read 3 books and fucking execute every single thing in those 3 books than read 30. Because you'll be far more successful if you execute on 3 books than just by reading 30 and being a philosopher. There's plenty of, I think there's a lot more business philosophers out there than there are business coaches.
Yeah.
What 2 books would you recommend, Kerwin, for people to read?
I get asked that question all the time, but I know my response is always the same. Depends on what you want. If you can say to me, if I want to learn this, I want to become better at this, and I can give you those 2 recommendations easily.
Rhyley wants
if it's a general, He wants to what?
He wants to look 32.
How do we wind back the clock, Kerwin?
What book is out there? What
Supernatural, Joe Dispenza.
Read it. It's good. It obviously hasn't done anything for me.
Oh dear God, I'm not going to leave this one down.
You dig a hole. No, but what about, like, in regards to, I guess, like those two books, if they were based, because I think everything comes down to that, like your psychology and mindset anyway. So if you get those sort of things right anyway, your business, your personal life, all that sort of stuff will eventually click into place. So probably around those two, have you got any, your top recommendation like that for someone?
Ooh, around psychology, there's so many that I could draw upon, but there's a great one by Richard Bandler and John Grinder called How to Change Your Brain. And John Bandler and Richard Bandler and John Grinder, they're the two founders of neuro-linguistic programming. Yeah. And neuro-linguistic programming in its purity was a very, very strong science. You know, it basically had adapted and adopted from some of the top ologies within psychology, some of the top, fields within psychology, and they condensed some of the most effective treatments within a whole range of different fields of psychology into this model of neurolinguistics. What it's been done to, it's been bastardized to death. So I don't think I'd call what NLP today is what it once was. There's some similarities there. But How to Change Your Brain is a really fundamental book on understanding how to change the way your brain works. And I think, if people can start to understand that your brain is nothing more than a bioorganic computer, the only difference being is you're the programmer. You don't need to hire a programmer. And if you do, that might be a coach, who's someone who can tell you the right code to put in your computer. But the sooner you realize that you are, every single moment of every thought that you're thinking, you are typing on a deck, on a keyboard of a computer, there's programming, this piece of biological mass that produces a physiological response. The sooner people can make that connection, the sooner they can start owning their behaviors. Because a lot of people go, I don't know why I do that. Well, you do that for a very specific reason. Your job is to find out why. What is the thought pattern? What is the suggestion? What is the trigger that, sets that off? And when you can understand that, then you can change that. So,
yeah. No, perfect. And that's what it's interesting stuff, that quantum physics, like Joe Dispenza talks about anyway, and about how you can refire and rewire your own brain and whatnot. You can actually see it in real time with the videos that he has. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Once you know how to change your brain, you can do anything. And if there was a second book that I'd recommend on psychology, there's so many incredible books. Look, I think a really good basic book on psychology that I think most people could probably get access to is, and it's not going to sound like a psychology book, but it actually is. It's a really good basic book to start with, is Think and Grow Rich. And it's a really basic book, but it's so basic. And I share this as a bit of a perfect example. It's so basic that most people miss it. I remember when I first read that book, it said, there's a secret inside this book. And I remember going, fucking awesome, I need a secret. And then it said, the secret, it'll have the secret to all of the wealth and the riches and everything you could possibly want. I said, great, I want that secret. And this secret could even be contained in the title of this book. And I remember stopping and going, Think and Grow Rich. Fuck, what is it? What is it? I'm missing it. I don't even understand. What's the secret? And I was Think and Grow Rich. And I was like, I still didn't get it. You know what I mean? And so for me, I had to read Think and Grow Rich probably about 10 times before I fully understood it. But, I think Napoleon Hill was well ahead of his time. He was introducing, quantum dynamics. He was introducing tantric and kundalini dynamics. He was introducing a lot of stuff that most people they just wouldn't even understand. Sex transmutation, that's tantra. It's understanding the basis of tantra. And when you look at, many other aspects of what he talks about, it's quantum dynamics. It's, the power of auto-suggestion. That's base level psychological programming. How do you program a mind? Through suggestion. We're all nothing more than a function of all the suggestions that we've held onto for our entire lives. Yeah. Where those suggestions were wrapped in stories or statements. And it's a very basic book, but it's very intelligent, and most people completely miss it.
And we know, so one last question anyway. So managing emotions like guilt and shame and anxiety, things like that as well. How do you best, what's your suggestions for people around that anyway?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the first thing for people to remember is that you are not an emotion. You are not an emotion. Okay. Most people go, well, I'm depressed. No, you're feeling depressed. I'm angry. No, you're expressing or you're feeling anger. Yeah. I think the biggest challenge with emotions is people identify as the emotions and not understand that an emotion is a transient molecule that is by design there to be activated, be released, be consumed by the cell, and the cell is activated. And then once it's used, it finishes. Yeah. Emotions are by design supposed to be transient. And if you bombard cells with the same emotions for too long a period of time, the cell will actually start to adapt to the environment, and the cell will become, in some cases, dysfunctional, because it'll start craving more of certain peptides or neuropeptides within your system that perhaps might not be healthy for, total function. If you keep bombarding your cells with sadness, your cells will evolve and adapt to be hungry for sadness, to be fed by sadness. And then all of a sudden you find yourself wanting to be sad and thinking about sad things for no reason. That's not effective. But that's a conditioning tool. But emotions are by design there to be felt. They're not there to be repressed or suppressed. And I think another challenge with emotions is people don't allow themselves to feel emotions. They try and quell them. And I think emotions should be felt and expressed in healthy ways. And if people don't know how to express them in healthy ways, then that should be part of their work and their pursuit, and it's learning how to express anger, learning how to express sadness. And how do you express any emotion in a healthy way? Well, first of all, you do it through communication. I'm angry. No, I'm feeling really angry about this. The way that this happened, this is how it made me feel. Versus ranting and raving and then that triggering someone else and then saying something else that triggers that person further, and it becomes this, most people end up having arguments about the very thing that they weren't even arguing about. They end up arguing about the things that were said in the argument that become the point of, the argument. And it's just like, well, if we can learn how to express emotions, sadness, guilt, shame, jealousy in healthy ways, you will find that the reception is very different. Whereas if you express anger in an unhealthy way and you yell and scream, it's going to probably be received in a poor way, and it'll probably trigger that other person to create a cycle of anger. Whereas if you can sit down and go, hey, listen, do you mind if I just share something right now? Can you create a safe space for me to share this? Okay, this might be to you and about you, but I just need you to hold space right now and just listen. And most people go, well, fuck, that'd be nice. I'll tell you, it's fucking amazing. I've got that with my partner right now. We have an amazing relationship where we can sit down and go, I need to express something. And it can be as triggering as it could be based on a level of bias, judgment, perception, or whatever. The goal of myself, if she's sharing or expressing, or hers, is to sit there and hold space and just listen, and then just be curious. And what's interesting is when you express it in a healthy way, you then go, fuck, I'm no longer angry anymore. Do you know why? Because it's now transient. It's now transpired through. You no longer have the anger anymore because you fucking expressed it. It's when you hang on to the anger that it recycles itself.
It's interesting. Rhyley and I both speak to a mindset coach on a weekly basis. And one thing that I've taken from that is, even with it's obviously learnt behaviours, even my son, I know that if I'm telling him to do something, he's going, oh, well, you're making me feel sad. And one thing that I've taken away from speaking to our mindset coach was I'm not making them feel anything. There's something that's obviously triggering them personally as to why they're feeling like that.
But this is the thing. You can't tell someone that. You can't say, oh, well, I'm not making you feel that way. That's a feeling that you're choosing about. That's someone that you have to condition someone over time. Like my son, 6.5, we're having that conversation on a daily, weekly basis. Daddy, you made me sad. No, son, I didn't make you sad. You chose to be sad.
Yeah.
Now, we've been having that conversation for a very long time. But what's interesting, he's 6.5. And when he's, my partner has a daughter, and so he calls her his sister. And there's been a few situations where she's like, well, you made me sad. And he will say, I'm not making you sad. You're choosing to feel sad. It's like, fucking boom.
Yeah.
It was worth those 5 years of relentless, embedding and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, with kids, when it comes to conditioning kids to accept responsibility, it's not a one conversation. It's a 3,000, it's that same conversation fucking 10,000 times till they get to an age where all of a sudden it becomes who they are, becomes a part of them. If it's your partner and they're not a child, it becomes having that conversation enough times till all of a sudden one day they go, fuck, you know what? You're right. But very rarely is it the first time you tell them. In most cases, it comes when it's been told to them by someone else. And they come and go, you know what you used to say? I just heard someone else say it. And now I actually understand. Well, all it took was someone else. Yes. Don't get fucking angry that it took someone else. Be grateful that someone else fucking showed up to actually, to say that. Because sometimes we have, filters from the people that are in front of us.
And you spoke about, look, with your partner as well, obviously that transparency and whatever you've got to be able to open that. But how do you create that with a partner?
Well, it's like recruitment. You've got to first of all, you've got to try and select the right partner to begin with. A big part of it is choosing the right partner. And I think it's Napoleon Hill even said the most important decision you'll ever make is the decision about who you choose to partner with. And you've got to, if you're already in a dynamic where that's not present, then yes, you've got to work towards creating the boundaries and the frameworks that enable that to take place. But if you're, looking for a relationship, like I know for me, I spent the last 3.5, 4 years single before getting into the relationship I'm in right now. And the reason I did that is because I didn't need to be with anyone else. I didn't want to be with anyone else. And I won't say I had a strict criteria, but I had a sense of what I was looking for. And what I was looking for is a very open connection with someone who had the ability to sit down and talk about very difficult things and was willing to sit in enormous amounts of discomfort to pursue, exceptional levels of, personal realization. Because that's what a relationship really should be, is a joint partnership for the support of, self-realizations, self-actualization. And you can't self-actualize if you can't self-express. Part of self-actualizing is learning how to express, the things that are coming up for you.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, mate. Look, thank you so much for your time. We're extremely grateful and appreciative. Yeah, thank you very much, mate.
Bless you, cotton socks.
What are we doing, guys?
Thank you guys so much.
I need to get on the yoga.
Unbelievable.
Namaste, mate. Keep the yoga up. You'll look like 33 in no time, mate.
Yeah, exactly right.
You need to do some more breakfast.
I'm not there.
The ice bath might help.
Yeah, I used to think you're a good dude.
It's a grainy picture. It's the internet. It's a grainy picture. It's a camera. Yeah. It's the lighting. I'm sure we can come up with something.
Yeah. I haven't had a shave for you, Kerwin. Unbelievable. Look like I'm 40. We are.
All right, guys. I've got to run.
Grateful and appreciate your time, mate. And we'll continue to follow along in the journey. And we've actually got Tom Cronin. We've been speaking to him over the last couple of days too. It looks like
he's phenomenal.
Jump on board. Yeah. And we listened to your Unstoppable podcast with him the other day too. And he's got an awesome. Yeah,
he's good.
Yeah.
He has. All right, guys. Got to run. Bless your cotton socks. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Keep going. See you.
Bye.
Bye.